Without a shadow of a doubt, it's the Cronkite Show in social media history. I want to welcome you to a special edition of the War Zone. I am the five-star general, and tonight we have a special guest, Miss Sonia Rash, candidate, Fort Bend County attorney, and we're gonna get into it all the way up until the elections are over. Fort Bend, Harris County, we are going to have the people that are running for public office to sit down with me on one-on-one interviews, and we're gonna talk about it. So let me get to it. Say, man, I want to thank all of y'all for tuning in to the War Zone. We did the regular episode at 7 o'clock. It was fantabulous. But now we're going to dip into something a little bit more. I think every voter has a right to get to know who a candidate is. Me being a person that ran for public office, I hated doing forums and debates because I didn't feel like the voter could get to know me, in 1 or 2 minutes. I just didn't feel like they could make a conscious decision on whether or not they should vote for me in 1 or 2 minutes. So when we started the War Zone, we wanted to add extra aspects to it. And this is one of those where we will sit down and do one-on-one interviews with prospective candidates from different races from all over the country, not just Houston and Harris County and Fort Bend, but from everywhere. We're gonna talk to them from everywhere. So but tonight we're gonna talk whether or not Sonia Rash, who's running for Fort Bend County attorney. How you doing, Sonia?
I'm well, Mr. Monroe. Thank you so much for asking, and thank you so much for letting me be on your show. I appreciate that.
Say anytime, man. Anytime. They say I'm a crazy man, but I'm really not. I'm just a guy that likes to hold public officials accountable. So we're gonna jump straight into it because that's what the people want to see. They want to hear. So tell us a little bit about you. Where did you grow up? Where you from? Tell the people a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, so I grew up actually in Houston, a little place called Westbury. If anybody is from Houston, you know where Butler Stadium is. Butler Stadium's by West Airport and Hillcroft. And there's some railroad tracks. Anyway, I tell people I'm behind those railroad tracks, and that's where I grew up. And that's where my parents still live. And when I was growing up, the community is still the same it was. There was a bar on one side and there was a liquor store on the other side. I went to Andy Anderson Elementary School, if anybody out there is from there. And then I went to Fondren Middle School. I was zoned to Westbury, but I went to high school for performing arts instead. So after that, I got my bachelor's degree in political science from Our Lady of the Lake and a master's in economics from St. Mary's University. Both were in San Antonio. And then when I moved back here, I went to Texas Southern University and I got my law degree. Now, when I grew up in a time with my mom and dad. We grew up in a little place, but yeah, I still live there. I don't live there, but my parents still live there. I still call that partly my home just because my parents are there too.
So my next question to you is why? And I ask people this because I deal with a lot of elected officials that at the end of the day they turn out to be garbage. They just turn out to be garbage. Because, when you ask a person, why did you choose to run? They give you the right answers, but when it's time to actually do the job, it's something else. So why did you choose to run for Fort Bend County attorney?
So I don't tell the story quite often, but let me tell you. So I'm a little older, right? I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. And during that time, there was the Iran-Iraq war. Some people are kind of familiar with that. Now, I'll tell you, not that it makes a difference, but I'm not from Iran. I'm not from Iraq. But I'll tell you what I do remember. And I was 7 and 8 years old during that time. Here's what I remember. I remember people will come up to me, come up to my family, and come up to my sisters, and they would be really cruel. They would tell us, you know, you got to go back to where you come from. You're a sand jockey. They would use some horrible, horrible words and horrible names. And, you know, as a child, it really didn't bother me as much as when I used to watch my sister walk from middle school to her car. I'd have to see boys on each side of her yelling at her to go home, that she had a big nose, that her color looked funny, that she didn't belong here. Now, again, I was a child, right? But I don't think it affected me personally when somebody said it to me. But what it did is when I watched my sister, when I watched my father, my mother, friends being treated so wrong, no reason at all, other than the way that they look. I knew even as a child that I wanted to do something. I didn't know what exactly, but I wanted to do something to help people. And I mean, that's what I feel like I still do in life. I feel like that's my goal, is to help. So that really, it pushed me into going into all the things I went to, what I do now, and what I want to do for everybody else.
Here's a question.
Sure.
I sat in a room with some politicians. I think it was back in last November. Well, last October, in a forum, and I saw people campaigning and making promises. And I asked a simple question.
Right.
I asked it, I said, well, if you're running for city council, and I'm going to use that as an example, when you disagree with the mayor, which one of y'all gonna punk out first? Good friend of mine, Dr. Carolyn Evans Shabazz, was the first one to raise her hand. Now she's city councilwoman, District D.
Okay.
She said it won't be me. And I be damn, it was her first. So here's my question to you. What makes us believe that you will get this position and not punk out once you get the position? What makes us believe that when you get this position, you won't forget about the people that actually put you in there?
Absolutely. Let me tell you something. One, I'd like you to look at my record. Before I was even running, I was doing things for all of our communities. I would like to tell you about two things that we're still working on right now. And I know that it might have been mentioned that at Fort Bend, Houston, I went ahead and I traveled with a group of us, and we went to Austin, and we were fighting for that area and their housing projects. These are things that I don't do, and I didn't do at the time either. And this was about a year and a half ago, for recognition. Obviously, it was all pro bono. I wasn't getting paid for it, nothing like that. But it's something because it was a right thing to do. And that is what we all should be doing. And not only that, we have issues right now, again, somewhere in that area with a crime spree. And again, these are things that were not publicized. And I'm not publicizing, but because you've asked, is that I'm also working with some of the community leaders over there to catch this person who has the crime spree. But these are things that we do because it's the right thing to do to help people. So I tell people, look at my record. Look at my record. It's not about, hey, now I'm running and now I'm doing it. It's, hey, I've done it before I was running. Because I feel it in my heart, at least I feel it in my heart, that I like to put myself in somebody else's situation, because you never know when it could be you. And I want somebody standing up for me. And so I feel like that's what I want to do for other people.
Now, I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Okay.
We done heard that 1,000 times.
Which one?
Especially on the Democratic side of the ball. We've heard all these stories from, and I'm not picking on you. I'm just telling you what we see and hear every day. Democratic candidates or incumbents come through the door. They make 1 million promises, and they never deliver.
Hmm.
What makes you different than them? And I want you to be specific because I'm not trying to no
Right.
trick questions. Because as an African American, right, I am
Right.
tired of dealing with my leadership that continuously lies to me. I am tired of the empty promises. And everybody speaks a good sermon when they running, but then once they get in, the whole game switches. I know a council member in Houston, Jared Davis, that purposely unplugs his phone so the constituents can't even call him when they got issues. That's not what you do when you become an elected official.
No, you
So
were.
here's the question. Watch this question. I know you're gonna get it right. So if you go and you win, who is actually your boss?
You know what? Commissioner's court. They will be my boss. If I did something wrong, they're going to go ahead and call me out on it. But you know what? I tell the public, if I'm doing something that you feel is wrong, I'm going to have an open door policy. Come in, talk to me. Let's see if we can work on it. But tell me, I tell people, we don't know if we're doing something wrong. I mean, if it's not intentional, if you don't communicate with us, you've
But
got.
when we communicate sometimes with politicians, they scream that we're trying to intimidate them, yet we're only trying to hold them accountable.
And that's what you should be doing, though. That's the whole purpose, right? You've got to hold people accountable for what they say. You got to have that transparency within your government.
So what you're telling me
I
is
tell
the
people,
people of
I
the
tell
people of Fort Bend County will have an open door policy with you. You will
open
be
door.
so transparent with them. And when I say transparent, that's up to a certain point where you can speak about certain things that you can
Absolutely.
be transparent about, and then other things that you openly can never discuss with people because that's the way that works up there. But I just want you to go on record, and you're telling me that these people will have an open door policy with you.
Yeah, and it should be that way because I would like people to know I work for you. You don't work for me. I know that I work for you. Even in my
And
own.
a couple of my bosses right now in Houston City Council, they don't want to do the work no more because they don't like me holding them accountable. And I'm gonna be honest, I was a resident of Fort Bend County for 12 years, so I'm kind of familiar with the area, and I will say that it's a little bit more easier to communicate with Fort Bend officials than it is with Harris County. I find that to be. Um, but like I say, the same thing. We just don't want you to become the regular. Don't want you to be status quo,
Right.
where you talk a good game, but then when you get in there, it's something else. That's not what we need for the citizens of Fort Bend County.
Well, that's not what I want either. I want to be somebody that is fair to everyone. I want to be someone that people can come in and actually talk to me on all levels.
That's it.
And I want people to feel comfortable talking to me.
All right. Let's get down to some other stuff.
Sure.
What is your ideologies on defunding the police?
Completely defunding the police. Well, first we would actually have to set up what would we do if we defunded the police? I mean, we would have to think about that, about completely defunding the police. I think that would be a difficult situation to do. But I do think the police officers need to take accountability. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing, though. I have in a legal career done civil rights cases and discrimination cases. And I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you that is because I have sued the police department before for an officer involved shootings. I know the difficulties that it takes when you are trying to get the right things done. When the police or a government agency does something that we know shouldn't be doing. And I know how difficult it is in the court of law to get justice over this. We got qualified immunity for people going out there murdering other people, murdering Africans, murdering other minorities.
I think that you're right on track. I think that a lot of government officials, their ideologies when we scream defund the police, is totally different. I think that police officers should be peace officers. I think that they should not have to be mental health specialists.
Oh, absolutely not. That's not
I
their
think
job.
that they should not have to be, you know, they should have to be the little league football coach. You see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So in our world, defunding the police means using funds to create other avenues to deal with other issues that need to stand alone by
Right.
themselves.
Right.
And when we say defund the police, everybody gets up in arms. And I will go on record and say we cannot live in a lawless society.
Right.
It cannot happen. It's not realistic. It can't happen. But I know that we have more than enough money in every city, every county, to be able to do the things that we need done. See, I'm gonna tell you this here, and I want you to elaborate on it. What we don't need anymore is grandstanding elected officials. What we don't need anymore is picture taking elected officials. What we need is some real public servants who just don't show up on Thanksgiving Day to give out turkeys. That's what we need. We need some people that
We're going to
are
do the
from
work.
the community that want to take care of the community. And that's where we are dropping the ball. And that's why I want to have these discussions with each one of you candidates. All right. Tonight is your night to kind of clear the air, let people know who you are, get to know you, and you pitch your pitch so maybe they can go into that voting booth because it's early vote. Ain't no early vote. Ain't no excuses. I think that all the voting polls that I've visited have done a great job with the COVID, with social distancing. So you don't have to scream, I gotta do a mail-in ballot. No, you don't. You can actually walk in there and go cast your vote. So my thing is of course, in every election, all of a sudden, here comes the craziness. Here comes the craziness in every. I've been through it myself in elections, and God knows I didn't know where it came from. So in the last, I guess, week or two, out in and it's not just for business, other places, because y'all are like a walk in the park compared to Harris County with any type of political drama. There's some things that have happened in your race, and without going into great detail, there was some questionable mailers that went out. This is your opportunity to address that.
Sure. And I'm going to assume that there's a mailer that I sent out after I discussed it with many, many people. Because that's the process, right? I don't just create something, or my team just doesn't create something. We discuss it. We get advice from people. So one of my mailers that I sent out was with Martin Luther King on it. And I'm going to tell y'all, Martin Luther King, the reason I personally like that mailer, because just like most everybody around the world, he's a hero. He's an iconic figure. And to me, when I went through a tough time, as I said, as a child, this is a person that, not just me, right? Most of us, I would say even 90% of the world finds him to be a hero. And he stood up for what's right. I'm going to tell you, he took me through a lot of hard times, just standing up for people and standing up for right. So I have a mailer, and it's with his picture in the front, and people were getting very upset that because I am not the right, I've been told, I don't particularly agree with it, but I've been told because I am not the right color, that I shouldn't have used Martin Luther King. Now, to me, that was offensive. That hurts. That hurts because when you look up to somebody, and this is what we should always be teaching our kid, why do we have to really look to see what a person's skin color is? I mean, this guy is a hero to everybody, is he not?
Let me say this here.
Sure.
A lot of people, they want to act like skin color and racism does not exist. Whether it's politics or anything, it does. It does exist. So my question, exactly, it's unfortunate, trust me, because I just left a Trump rally where I got to smoke cigars and drink, good drinks with some good white people, and I didn't even know they was white by the end of the night. I didn't care. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate, but we also have to understand that there are unwritten rules in politics, and that's the rules, that the unwritten rules are rules that somebody created that said you can and cannot do this because there will be backlash. So I'm gonna just ask: did anybody in the camp who reviewed reviewed the mailer beforehand? Did anybody think that mailer would cause the firestorm that it caused?
Not the firestorm. I had one individual, and I'm telling you, and you know what? It could be people didn't want to tell me. I don't know. People might have said it looks good. I agree with it. Because if you read the mailer here, and that's the other thing, many people got this on email. They didn't even read it. They didn't go to the back of it. And it talked about the fight that Martin Luther King and the civil rights people had during that time to get the vote. That mailer is about going out and voting because they gave up so much for all of us to be able to vote. And that's what the back of
but that leads me to a whole different subject, but I'll just say a little bit of it. Yeah, they taught me the same things that they taught you as far as going to vote, but they also taught me that my vote is a transaction. And what am I going to get for it? That's why I have some different ideologies on some of these national races that a lot of people, African American, won't have, because my vote is a transaction. So, I mean, major firestorm. But finish. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no. I mean, so basically, what I'm saying is that I wish people would have read the back of it. I think, unfortunately, there are people out there that don't want to hear the whole truth. What they want to do is just judge you. And as we all know, we all get judged. And unfortunately, sometimes, no matter who you are, we're getting judged because of the way we look or our gender or whatever it is. I think if most people would have read it, at least they would have understood that the mailer is about going out and voting because people have given up so much for all of us to vote. It's about doing what's right.
It looks like dirty politics has invaded Fort Bend County. I mean, you had the issue with the mailer. Can you please explain to the people,
Sure,
if you know, what is the issue with your opponent and a picture of her father or stepfather that was mysteriously uploaded to social media, which caused a whole nother firestorm?
let me tell you, this is politics and people. I don't know what everybody does. I'm on social media most of the time, especially right now because we're running a race. So apparently someone had sent somebody I know a picture and with the statement about the picture. Now I'm going to tell you, I still haven't really seen it. I haven't been on it, but I know what it is. I've talked to the individual and I know what picture it is. And they sent it over to somebody I know and requested it to be posted. The individual posted it, and I found out later it was posted. And now, I'm taking the heat for it, but that's okay. I'm supposed to be the captain. So advocate for it, I will. But I did not know that that poster or that posting was going out. Again, I still really haven't even seen it. But
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Did you have anything to do with that picture going out?
I didn't know it. I mean, I didn't know why it went out, and I didn't know that it was posted.
So here's a question. What exactly does a county attorney do?
You know that. Let me tell you, Mr. Monroe, that's a good question. I'll tell you why. Because when I talk to people, that's one of the first questions that I get. And secondly, most of them ask two things. Can you get me out of my ticket? And I tell them, nope, it's not even close to that. Or if I go to jail, can you help me out? Again, that's not something the county attorney does. So we all know what the DA does because it's very glorified. We do movies about it and television shows. The DA does all the criminal side for the county, right? Misdemeanors, felonies, all the, I like to say, the movie-fied version of it. The county attorney, what they does is basically, just to kind of put it in a nutshell, it defends the county against lawsuits. But it doesn't just defend the county against lawsuits. It can also bring lawsuits on behalf of our people in the county when a company wants to hurt the people in our county. And I can give you an example about that in a little bit too. But not only does it do that, it also provides all the legal advice to our elected officials and the department heads. What it also does, it also helps with CPS cases. It's a part of actually it runs the CPS cases in Fort Bend County. Now, if there's a long list, it's an administrative position in the way that there is actually a statute that defines what the county attorney does. It writes contracts. It also reviews the contracts, which is very important to know how to do contracts. The county attorney's office, it wears many, many hats. I tell people you can't do one thing in your career for 10 or 15 years and say, I can run a county attorney because I've done this for 10 or 15 years. You have to be able to pick up a contract. You have to be able to do the legal research, give the advice that you need. I was fortunate enough, not only because I have my own firm and that I've also been helping and being hired by other law firms to do their work, that I know how to do a contract within a minute. I know how to review it. I know how to pick up the law. I know what it takes. I have worked with numerous lawyers, accountants, secretaries, anything legal related, budgeting. I've budgeted cases worth $100 to cases worth $1 million. These are things you really have to do, but you not only have to do it like one time in your life, you have to do it on a regular basis. So what I'm basically trying to say is when you're running for county attorney, I tell people, look into what somebody has done within the past 10 to 15 years. You got to wear many hats. You got to know how to do many types of cases. You got to know how to do employment cases. You got to understand these things. You got to know how to do civil rights cases. You got to know how to do discrimination cases. You got to be familiar with it. And you got to not just be familiar with it, but I'm counting on this. You got to be familiar with it on a regular basis.
Now, as you talk about civil rights and discrimination, the whole world saw what happened to George Floyd.
Right.
As I said earlier, I lived in Fort Bend County. And for me, it was not a great experience for 12 years. I felt that African Americans, depending on what side of the county you lived on, were not wanted in Fort Bend County. And I woke up one morning and I moved the hell up out of Fort Bend County. So when I think of ways that Fort Bend County can get better, especially with some of their police departments who are notorious for racial profiling.
And it's not
What do you think that can be better between the police as well as the community. Even though you'll be the county attorney, you're still a resident of Fort Bend County. We can't, once again, we can't act like this does not happen,
Right.
because it does happen. And it happens right there in Fort Bend County. So what needs to change between law enforcement and the community?
Well, first, communication. Law enforcement needs to be in our communities. They need to talk to people. They need to find out what's going on in our communities. But I'll tell you what, as the county attorney, what I would like to do is I want to work with local law enforcement agencies like the sheriff's office, the district attorney's office, to review law enforcement's and the use of force policies and procedures, and advise and assist in creating policies that, I know we hear this on the news all the time, but to create policies that will ban chokeholds, create policies that will require officers to intervene when colleagues use excessive force. And you know what else? Require officers to use body cams. These are not requirements, obviously, as we know right now.
So here's a question, because I'm gonna be tough on you. Was this important to you before or after they murdered George Floyd?
I'm gonna go back to what I just said before. I have done for many years civil rights cases. I have seen, not just because I have seen it because they've been cases, but I have been able to get IDA files, investigation files, and see the pattern and the practices that happen when it comes to law enforcement agencies, and how, unfortunately, you got this pattern in practice, but because of the hurdles of immunity, it is too hard to get over that hurdle when you're in court, so you can have justice for a loved one, because that loved one is somebody's father, and we have to realize that it's somebody's father, brother, son. It's somebody part of a family.
Yeah, that it's tough going through what we're going through right now, and I look at the elected officials around the country and how of an urgency, since the house is on fire, with these issues with law enforcement. The house is now on fire, but I remind all of them the house has been burning for the last 60 years. George
Right.
Floyd was just I think the thing that magnified George Floyd, there was no getting around it. It was done. We were able to see it. We didn't have to guess, and it was what it was. I think that anybody who wants to be an elected official or whoever is an incumbent, they are now charged with changing these things, these situations. I need a county attorney who's not gutless and spineless like some of these elected officials in the city of Houston.
Right.
Who, I'm looking at George Floyd's funeral, and it's a who's who of elected officials. It's a who's who of elected officials, and his funeral was in Fort Bend County.
Yeah.
I mean, his final, that
Right.
final thing was at Good Pastor Church that I know Reema's right. But see, my issue is now that Mr. Floyd is in the ground. The real work has to be done. And we don't need any elected officials that don't truly want to honor George Floyd. And you honor George Floyd by stepping on toes. You honor George Floyd by doing what you're supposed to do as an elected official. Can you make that commitment to do your part as far as that?
Absolutely. And I want to say one other thing. I want law enforcement to know that life is always important. A human life is always important. We cannot be taking away human life needlessly over ridiculous things. This is a person. And I think sometimes Maybe law enforcement does need a little bit of training, realizing that, you know what? We are all people here. And we cannot be killing people over property, killing people over situations
I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm gonna put you in that hot seat.
Okay.
So what type of additional training does an undercover racist that works in the police department need?
Well, look, if he's an undercover racist, he needs to be out of there. We need to vet those people out. Vet them out. And you know what? If he's got one complaint and we're keeping him on board or she on board, whoever it may be, that needs to go. Usually when there's a pattern in practice, that officer has his own pattern of doing this. Most likely that officer has been reprimanded more than once. And when we keep keeping them on board or moving them around to different local agencies, that needs to stop.
All right. So here's a question. You got to get a seatbelt for this one now.
Uh-oh.
Human life is important. I totally agree with you. And this is another firestorm that you faced in your candidacy, but I think you're doing pretty good right now. If human life is important, can you explain to the people what is going on with the life of Juan Balderas? How are you involved in that to the degree that you can talk about it?
Absolutely.
I don't know if you can go into detail, but a lot of people say you left him hanging and now he's on death row.
Sure. So let me back up. First of all, Juan Balderas was a case that I was involved in as an assistant mitigation specialist. I was not the lawyer in this case. And first, even a lawyer, there's no lawyer that can put somebody on death row. You go through a court, you go through a jury, they make those decisions. But I'm not saying that about this young man, but I want people to understand that I was not the lawyer on this case. I was not the second lawyer on this case. My capacity was not as a lawyer on this case. But somehow, this particular female, and I understand she's probably hurt and needs to put blame on someone, but to accuse, mislead, and falsify a mailer is not the way to do it. Now, we have filed a cease and desist, and we're going forward with filing a lawsuit for defamation, for misleading and false, because my reputation now is on the line, and I'm running for a position that I really care about. I'm running for something I want people to know that I want, not just me, but for everybody out there, not just for you, but for your kids too. And to have something false be put out there and mailed on top of it I don't know how she got this mailing list. I just have to assume how she got it, which I'm not really sure. But to mail something that is inaccurate and totally misleading, I have never, and she said that I lost a file. Again, I was the assistant to a mitigation specialist. I was the assistant mitigation specialist. My hands never touched this man's file. Never. If I was maybe the attorney in charge, the second attorney in charge, that's a possibility. So for her to tell me, or for her to put out there a flyer suggesting that I had anything to do with this young man's death row sentence is completely false and inaccurate. And you know what? I do encourage people to go online and look up the case. It's public knowledge. Read the case. Don't assume if you get something in the mail, don't assume everything is true because you have it in front of you. Do your research. Do your research. And once you do, you'll find out exactly what I'm saying. And
okay, we got a couple more questions.
Sure.
Now, in government jobs, it's not that easy to fire people. It's not that easy to fire people in government jobs.
Well,
So how do you
no,
change the federal and state policies regarding employment issues?
I'm sorry, one more time. I didn't hear you.
In
There's a little
government
echo.
jobs, is not that easy to fire people.
Okay.
So how would you help change federal and state policies regarding employment issues?
Well, again, my job is to be the county attorney, not to, as a county attorney, we don't, to be quite straight with you, we don't make the laws. We enforce the laws, but I don't make the laws. All we could do is follow the laws. But I tell you what, if we have an individual, an employee, and that's where I'm assuming you're going with this, and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, then we should be firing them. If they're not supposed to be doing something and they're doing it while they're at work, whatever it may be, then we've got the right to fire them.
Well, let's play devil's advocate.
Sure.
Why we be so quick to fire them, but we give a police officer additional training?
Well, additional training for the police officers are out there every day. Now, again, I would fire a police officer too if it was in my power, if he did something that he wasn't supposed to be doing. We can't have different rules for different people. Police officers are still people, and they have to follow the same rules, the same regulations as all of us.
Now, we interact with our audience, so James Pritchard, one of our viewers, has a question for you. And his question is, as a future elected official, I would like to know, what is her definition of racism in her own words?
Okay, and thank you, James, for asking me that. I'm going to say in my own words, because I feel like I don't know, you don't have to be a particular race all the time to have racism happen to you. Again, and I'll go back just for a brief second about growing up, being called a sand and the N-word to a child. I'll go back and say, being called such nasty words and nasty connotations. To me, racism means when you're not treated fairly just because the way you look, just because the color of your skin. And that's it. There's really no basis for it. The basis for it is you're different than me. And because you're different than me, I'm going to treat you different. That's how I see it.
Now, I'm gonna switch the game up a little bit.
Sure.
I do this in my personal life sometimes. I know people. If I ask people to tell me 5 bad things about me, they'll run them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how fast they'll say 5 things about me. Now, regardless of what may go on, I ran for public office against Wanda Adams, and that was like 4 years ago. And until this day, we're still decent with each other. And I think people need to understand, when you're running these races, it shouldn't get as personal as it gets. So I want you to tell me, now we can say bad things, tell me 2 good things about your opponent. Now I want you to understand that your opponent is going to be on the show Sunday. She's going to get that same question, because I'm going to be fair. So tell me 2 good things about your opponent.
Well, I think that she probably has a good work ethic. She has been in the same department, I believe, for many, many years, and that counts as something, right? I also think that she's a good speaker. She's a good speaker, but I think it takes more than just being a good speaker and maybe saying what people want to hear. I think it's about the passion too, about doing what is right.
Okay. Danita Williams has a question. Would your office be charged with staffing attorneys to represent the state with CPS cases?
Yes, it would.
Now you know CPS all jacked up, huh?
I know CPS is jacked up. It's more jacked up in Harris County, though, than it is in Fort Bend.
Oh, trust me, I know everything in Harris. Everybody in Harris County about to go to jail anyway. I think Fort Bend gonna have the only politicians ain't in jail in about 6, 7 months anyway. So, and I'm serious. But CPS is a totally different beast in itself.
Yes.
I don't know the ins and outs of it, but every time I've had to deal with it, it wasn't a good situation. So, I think when it's all said and done, um, here's a dumb question: can you be the first politician? I'll make you laugh tonight. Can you be the first politician for the holidays that gives out a ham instead of a turkey?
It did make me
Everybody
laugh.
taking turkeys.
Well, let's ask the people. You know what? And let me tell you, that's one of the things. I want to make sure that when we're in a community, the community needs to be involved. If we're going to make decisions,
That I agree on.
right, and I know we're saying this facetiously about the ham, but it's kind of like that right now. If we're going to do something for the community, let's see. Let's ask them. Let's see what they want. But I can't though, just so you know.
Now, if you could tell the voters of Fort Bend County one last thing, um, it's early voting. There is no lines, y'all, and it's like
Yeah.
that every election season. Early voting, you can get in, you can get out. If you've not voted, get in there and vote. Please get in there and vote. If you could tell these people one last comment, and you can take your time and do it, why should they vote for Sonia Rash?
Okay. Well, to me, that's easy. Um, Really, it's about hard work, it's about experience. And to me, it's also about education and doing what's right. And I welcome people to call me, to ask me, Sonia, what have you done? I welcome them to ask me, what have you done within our communities? I want to talk to people. I want them to reach out to me so I can let them know more about me. I want them to know that it is all of us together. I'm in everyone's community, everyone. I don't mean I'm just here at my home, my base. I'm trying to be as many places as one person can humanly be to do the best that I can for people. And I know, and I'm going to give you one example. I'm going to toot my horn just a little bit. Like during COVID, and I know that many people have started, reached out and things, but when we saw COVID was happening, I didn't wait to be told. I picked up the phone. I called our seniors. I called what I felt was the most vulnerable. And out of my own pocket, I drove to their homes when they said, we need this, we need that. But again, that's what it's about. It's not about, hey, let me write a newspaper article about it. It's about just doing it because it needs to be done and it's the right thing to do.
Now, I don't want to interrupt you.
Sure.
But when you said seniors, that triggered something in my thinking.
Sure.
A lot of politicians lean on the seniors because they know seniors are the ones that really go out and vote. I want to hear your opinion because I'm an education advocate. I love children. I want to hear your opinion about this pandemic and the possibility that the school district in your community will send those children back into those buildings knowing that they can't even have a school board meeting right now. So you won't jeopardize the superintendent catching the COVID, but you'll allow somebody's child to go back in the building to possibly catch it. What is your opinion? Because politicians lean on them seniors.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm gonna make you lean on these kids.
Sure. And let me tell you something. And I'm glad you said my opinion because that is school board and it's not related to what the county attorney does. But As a mother of two young girls, I got a 10-year-old and I got a 4-year-old. And just like any parent, we worry, right? We worry on a daily basis. When they leave our house, what's going to happen to them? Are they going to be safe? What's going on? I mean, we got so much other stuff that we have to worry about now on top of it. We got to worry about a deadly disease. And now we're finding even young people are getting it.
So you as a parent, would you send your kids back to school?
Let me tell you, I would have to have the knowledge that if they go back to school, that they are safe. They have to be safe when
doesn't it make sense what I just said? I want you to think about this. We can't go to a city council meeting. They don't want to risk the chance of city council members getting sick. We can't go to a school board meeting. They don't want to risk the chance of the administrations of the school getting sick. So they don't have a problem putting kids in a classroom. Let me ask you a question. This is a real question. This will be my last question. If I could take a 45 Magnum and put it at your 10-year-old head, would you allow me?
No.
Would you let me put a gun at your 10-year-old head?
Of course
Well,
not.
don't you put a gun at their head when you send them back in them schools. Because if your child dies, Charles Dupree is not going to bury your child.
Right.
And that's just from one parent to you as a parent. And regardless if you're not in education or not, the thing is, you're still a voice in the community, and some people will listen to you before they listen to school officials. All right?
Right.
So I want to thank you, ma'am. I want to thank you. I know a lot of people get nervous, come and sit down and talk to me. You know, yeah, I ask some tough questions some days, but I think I'm a respectable dude, and just try to get the people the information that they need. And I wish you well on your campaign run. And you know, I've been there. I ain't never going back there. I don't want to be no politician. I don't want to be out there in that hot sun.
And
I
it's
ain't
hot.
doing it. Oh, trust me, I know. It's hot. But you know, good luck on your campaign run. And as I said, your opponent will come on Sunday. I'm opening that door for anybody in Fort Bend that wants to come on. If they come on, I'm gonna invite their opponent and be fair to their opponent so that they can have their time to be able to sit down and talk. And I think you had a lot of people, matter of fact, from Fort Bend on here tonight that were watching. So, you know, hopefully they got the information they needed to make an informed decision. And with that being said, you get the closing words.
Okay, thank you. But Mr. Monroe, the last thing I want to say, and the last thing I'd like to say to the viewers out there, one, go out to vote. Our vote is our voice. Not only that, let's vote for the right reasons. Let's vote based on experience, education. Let's not vote because of somebody's gender, because of somebody's race or their religion. Because if we do that, we're back at the same problems over and over again. Let's fix what needs to be fixed by having qualified people. Either way, please go out and vote. As Mr. Monroe said, early voting has already started. It goes all the way till July the 10th. And then July the 14th is election day. We're urging everyone to please vote early, especially because of COVID. We don't want long lines during election day. And right now, as Mr. Monroe had said, there are no lines. Everybody is social distancing on all the locations that I have been to also.
Well, I tell you what, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Those that'll be here tomorrow, we'll do another show after the show. And tomorrow, guest on the War Zone is the opponent of the Harris County District Attorney, Kim Obb, Mary Nan Huffman, Republican, will sit down in the War Zone and have a conversation with the big dogs. Thank you, Sonia, and good luck. And stay out that heat, man. I don't know how y'all doing it right now, but stay out that damn heat. It's too hot. That's all I can say, man. So,
Thank you.
anytime, anytime.
No, they gonna come down here.
I want to thank you guys for tuning in to a special edition of the War Zone. Sonia Rash, candidate, Fort Bend County Attorney, tomorrow night on the War Zone. Mary Ann Huffman, Republican, opponent. Incumbent Kim Ogg, you got some competition, and we're going to go at it. Until then, I'm the 5-star general, and I'll holler at y'all tomorrow.